This is how to make decisions like the top 1%. 10 years ago, I nearly destroyed my $100 million business with one bad decision. I then read every book I could find on decision making, and I started documenting all of my major life decisions. I then built another business, now to $200 million in sales, and it's been way smoother, easier, and way less time consuming. This decision-making system helped me be a better investor, build better relationships, and feel more fulfilled. Here's how it works. First, what are the two main causes of bad decisions? Number one is what are called cognitive biases. These are errors in our thinking that come from when we were running around thousands of years ago just trying to survive. Back then, we developed all these shortcuts over thousands of years that helped us survive in really uncertain environments, that helped us find food, that helped us avoid predators, and that helped us live and procreate so we can continue the species. The problem is, a lot of these cognitive biases don't serve us well in our modern world, where we don't have those same sort of concerns, and life is a lot more complex because we're dealing with tons of information, tons of complexity in the world in terms of making money, building businesses, dealing with lots of relationships. So a lot of these don't serve us well anymore. So that's the cause number one of bad decisions, is those things tripping us up. Cause number two is a lack of a checklist to counteract those cognitive biases. Because if we feel like we're just going to naturally do it, our ingrained wiring that's been built in us from birth is going to take over. It's going to win. So we need a checklist that we go through every time we make a very important decision that'll guarantee you end up with a better outcome. And so those are the two main causes we're trying to overcome with the decision-making system. So now here are the 5 steps to make better decisions. Step number 1 is you need context. And so this step is relatively simple. In this step, you're basically just documenting the context of the decision. For example, say you're thinking about whether to launch a new business or even just a new product in an existing business. You would document things at the very beginning before you thought through anything else, such as what is your current situation? Why does this decision matter? Why do you want to make this decision? What is it that makes it important? Those are the things you want to write down ahead of time at the top of a document, in your notebook, whatever system you use. And I'll tell you exactly what I do at the end of this video for my personal decision journal. But you just want to give yourself context for this decision so you can refer back to it later, which is very important when we get to step number 5. So I'm going to give you an example that's kind of going to run through the thread of this video, and each one of these steps is a real decision that I was trying to make. So a few years ago, I was trying to decide whether or not to shut down a mastermind that we'd called the Tycoon Tribe. We had built it over a couple of years. We had a lot of great members that were paying us $15,000 to $18,000 a year, but I was so busy with other opportunities that I was having a tough time deciding whether to keep this thing going because it required a lot of time, a lot of effort, even though we had good cash coming in from it, great group of people that I absolutely had a great time hanging out with and was able to impact and inspire and help grow their businesses. But it was taking up so much time relative to the other opportunities that I had that I wasn't sure whether I should shut it down or not. So I wrote down that context. How long had I been doing the mastermind? Why was I thinking about possibly shutting it down? How well was it doing financially? Where did I see opportunities? Where did I see problems? Those were the context that I wanted to capture at the beginning of the decision. One big mistake people make in this decision is they don't get really clear on what they want. They may talk about a problem they have in life, but what is the outcome that they really desire? And so if you're launching a business, launching a product, getting really clear on what you're hoping to get out of this. Do you want to build $1 million business, a $10 million business? Are you looking to build a business you can sell? Are you looking to do some sort of other opportunity with this business, a partnership? Are you trying to add extra cash flow, extra profit? And so you want to be really clear on what it is you want. Do you want a business that you can run and makes you a ton of money, but doesn't require very much time? Or do you just want the biggest financial outcome possible? And so getting really clear on what you want. In my case for the mastermind is I wanted to inspire and impact people, but I also wanted to make sure that I was growing and scaling my other businesses with a lot better financial prospects. And so get really clear on that outcome for step number 1, which is context. Then step number 2 is to get more options. And so I've read a lot of research on decision making, and one of the biggest things that they've proven out is that the quality of your decisions increase greatly by getting more options. because most of us think in terms of just A or B. This is all we're considering. We're kind of stressed out in the process of this. And so we can't really see any other options. So part of the process is, even if you literally think those are the only two options, is to just force yourself to come up with a handful of more options. For example, if you're looking at launching a business or a product, more options could be: option A is you launch the new business or product. Option B is you don't. Now, but those aren't your only options, because you can wait to launch the business. That's another option. You can launch it by yourself. You can launch it with a partner. You can join an existing company. You can launch something else, and you can launch a smaller featured version of the exact same business or product. You have all these other options, and these start increasing the breadth of opportunities that you have, which is going to greatly increase your likelihood of making a good decision. So when I was thinking about shutting down our mastermind, I could have shut it down completely. And at first I was just thinking, shut it down or not. But I realized throughout this process, I could shut it down completely. I could go 100% all in, or I could do a pay per event model. And an option that I didn't even consider at the time, even though I'd considered a few others, is the one that I actually ended up pursuing. And I'll share that in a few minutes. And it was kind of by accident, but I forced myself to come up with multiple options so I wasn't just stressing between two different ones. So one big mistake people make here is they have too narrow of a focus with their options because they're so involved emotionally. So one tool you can do, which I do this all the time, is ask yourself, what would you advise a friend to do in the same situation? It kind of emotionally takes you out of the situation. Forget yourself. Imagine you have a friend that's in the exact same situation. What would you advise him or her to do if they were trying to decide just like you are? You'd probably give them some better options. So this just gives you more options to work with. The other thing is confirmation bias. It's much easier, which is why everyone sort of only listens to their own political party or other beliefs, is because they don't want to hear what the other side has to say, because that's kind of mentally uncomfortable to get other opinions that may conflict with the ones we really want to hold on to. We do the same things with decisions. We may think we're running through a decision-making process, but we may already have an idea of what we want to do. But if you want to be a high-quality decision maker like the top 1%, you have to be smarter and force yourself to look at other options. So one way to do this is to talk with somebody you don't agree with, or somebody that has a different opinion that you know is kind of uncomfortable because they're probably going to tell you something you don't really like. That's great. Hear their reason, hear them out. If it's a smart person, that's fantastic. They're not just making something up. They probably have good reasons why they believe what they do that may conflict with what you have. That's going to increase the quality of your decisions. Now, step 4, which we'll get to in a few minutes, is where people completely blow it in this process. And I'll show you a mistake that I made that almost derailed everything. But before that, let's jump to step number 3, which is to get base rates. So getting base rates means just getting the facts of the situation, the facts of the different options you're considering pursuing. So back to the business and product example, if you're looking at launching something new, what are the potential sales you could produce? Look at the competition. Look at how many reviews they have, how positive are those reviews, how long have those people been in business, how are they doing? Because those would be the people that you're going to be competing with. And that's a benchmark of how well you could do. Look at your potential margins. What are margins of those existing products and businesses? Because those are likely going to be somewhat similar to the margins you're going to get. And then also look at your own base rates, your own success history. Whenever you've launched businesses or products in the past, how well did they do? What's been your success rate? Because unless you've dramatically changed something in your life, you're probably going to have a similar percentage of success going forward. And so that can really help you when it comes to not over betting, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. And then also look at the actual cost to get started. You want to get the real data of your likelihood of success and what success or failure would actually mean financially, time-wise, and resources. So when I was considering shutting down our mastermind, I looked at the number of people in other masterminds. There's a buddy of mine, Ezra Firestone, is a great mastermind. There's a lot of internet marketing guys in the War Room mastermind with Ryan Deiss. And so I looked at these ones, like how well did they do? How many people did they have? How much money were they making? How long had they been doing it? What did their business models look like with those? And then I also kind of mapped out, what did the full scope of going all in, which was one of my options, look like? How much time would it take? And what I found out, it was going to be a lot of freaking work and time, because if I really wanted to go all in on that model, I'd have to have a full sales team. I'd have to be doing multiple events a year. I'd have to have a whole team to support this event, all of that sort of stuff. Then I also looked at how well these other masterminds were doing. Some of them just completely shut down, even though they seemed very successful on the outside, which told me one thing, is that they weren't quite as successful as they made it seem. And then I thought about how many masterminds are really successful after a lot of years. And it's basically zero because it's not the best business model. And so one big mistake people make is they're overconfident. They think that, especially if you're an entrepreneur, you think that this thing is 100% going to work and there's zero chance of failure. In all likelihood, there's a high chance of failure, and that's okay. You do it anyways, but you reduce your risk. So the antidote to this is getting real data from your own history and from the history of other people who have done what you want to do. Step number 4, prepare to be wrong. With whatever option you decide to pursue, there's not a 100% chance of success. There's a good chance it will fail, but you do it anyways because you're placing a smart bet on your own future. So most products and businesses don't end up working out, and that's totally fine. You have to try it anyways. So what you want to do is come up with a range of possibilities, from this thing went fantastic to it went okay to it went really bad. What does each of those mean in terms of the time you invested, the money you invested, the resources you invested, and the potential outcome that you're getting? Sales, profitability, wealth, all those kind of things. So your cost versus reward. How does that look like in the worst possible scenario, in an okay scenario, and a really, really good scenario? And so that's what you're looking at, is this range of possible outcomes, not just here's what I 100% think is going to happen, because in all likelihood, that's not what's going to be the actual outcome. So when I was looking at these masterminds, I was looking at the range of possible outcomes of shutting it down, keeping it going all in, all those kind of things. I actually ended up deciding to shut it down because I really like the people, but it was too much of an opportunity cost relative to my other businesses. And I had to also really clarify early on, what is my purpose of doing this? It was to help other people and make some good money in the process. And this was not the best model to do it. So it was a hard news to break to our members because I really did enjoy spending time with them, got a lot of hugs from them, and we sort of parted our ways, and I'm still friends with a lot of them to today. But that was my decision, and I had to look at what each of those possible outcomes could look like. Another not so good example was back in the day, over a decade ago, I hired a full-time CMO in one of my businesses, an executive with six-figure salary and all that. And he basically ended up committing us to $1 million marketing campaign that I probably could have pulled the plug on, so I have to take some blame myself, to test a new form of advertising on radio and that sort of thing that we had never done before. But our commitment was $1 million for a completely unproven ad channel. It ended up completely bombing. We basically lost $750,000 on that. The dumb part is that we could have tested that for 20 grand. So a big mistake people make in this step is fully committing to something versus testing smaller. If you can get the same data, the same answer by just testing something small, that's much better than going all in and you have to make it work. Because if it doesn't work, you could be taking 10 steps backwards, as opposed to trying something out. You take 2 steps backwards, try something out again, take 2 steps backward, and then something hits and you're off to the races. The whole part is being able to stay in the game. That's a big mistake people make, is not testing small. So lastly, step number 5, review to get better. So say you're launching this business or the product. After the launch, you want to review the outcome versus your expectations, which is the purpose of keeping a decision journal. How did it actually work out versus what you thought was going to happen? What were your assumptions? How did they prove out in the real world? What did you learn from this whole process? If you go through this system, documenting your decisions, running through this process, reviewing your outcomes after those decisions have been realized, you will be in the top 1% of decision makings, because nobody does this. But it's so simple. All you do is keep this stuff in a Google Doc like I do, document your decisions, set a few calendar reminders, go back and review it, get smarter for the next time. You do this over a few years, you're going to fly ahead of everyone else. So with our mastermind, when I ended up shutting it down, part of it was I just didn't really like the recurring nature of events and also having to do phone sales to get people in. I absolutely dreaded doing phone sales, and I didn't really want to hire salespeople at the time. And I also realized people don't really need another mastermind. What they really needed was direct help and coaching. So I actually ended up launching a few years later a program to do just that, provide help and coaching to 7-figure e-commerce entrepreneurs. Though that wasn't the plan when I shut down the mastermind. Now I'm absolutely loving this new model. And so this whole thing came from this decision-making process. It took a while to realize it, but this is so much of a better model for me. And it's also, I believe, better for the people that are in the program. And this is not meant to be a sales pitch for this thing, but if you happen to be in that situation where you own a 7-figure e-commerce business, which I know is a tiny percentage of the people watching this, feel free to go to my website, go to mattc.com/growth, to get more information. Now, big mistake people make in this review step is they never actually review the decisions. They just keep making the same mistakes year after year after year, and you wonder why some people skyrocket in life and others never go anywhere or even eventually decline. By reviewing your decision, that's the way you get smarter. It's so important. And so if you want my personal decision template below, it's 100% free. Just click the link below. Basically, I just took my Google Doc and the actual template that I use today to make decisions that run through this whole process in a lot more detail. I basically just took that and put it in its own file and are giving to you for free. That's it. No catch. You can unsubscribe anytime from emails. If there's even an opt-in, don't worry about that. And if you like more stuff like this on making better decisions, on starting and scaling businesses based on my experience, selling about $500 million so far, subscribe to my channel and join my newsletter below. Thanks for watching.